What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Her Hoop Stats podcast, your daily podcast here from the Her Hoop Stats Network. Every weekday, we're coming at you. Today, it's Tyler and Brittany again, talking some playoff standings basketball. Every game, Brittany, down the stretch here is massive. Every game feels incredibly important. We had two of those games last night. We're going to focus more so on the Liberty and Valkyries, but of course, the Fever and Mercury also playing last night as well. And these standings right now are just absolutely insane. We were just talking about it before the show. Vegas, Atlanta, and Phoenix, all 6 games back from that first seed. Of course, different tiebreakers and whatnot come into play. Have Vegas in the second seed, Atlanta in the third, Phoenix in the fourth. And we're going to talk about Atlanta and LA playing tonight as well. But I want to start off with New York and Golden State. Brittany, I just have, I guess, a general question more so. We're deep into the season now. Obviously, like, we are to a point, we know who these teams are, but I feel like maybe more than any team, we've been holding out on the New York Liberty because we know what they were. We know on paper what they can be, but we continue to be shown this team that was able to not pick up a win and only score 58 points last night. I guess for you, just kind of a vibe check a little bit. Where are you at with the New York Liberty and where they stand in terms of trying to contend and go deep into the playoffs right now?
I think they're a hard team to gauge right now, just because, again, I think we said before we hopped on, they kind of are who they are at this point. They started the season 9-0, and since then they've played 15 and 17 basketball, which is way below their standards. But there also has to be a little bit of an asterisk because they also haven't played a fully healthy roster with everyone they've added. So I think there's still a little bit of that hope that, like, okay, you're going to put it together when everyone is healthy. And that's an unknown at this point, if everyone will be fully healthy. But I think the biggest thing, and you saw it towards the end of last night, is there's a big frustration within their team. Even Sandy Brondello got a T. You heard constantly on the broadcast about Stewie telling them this isn't championship, playing, the caliber of their play. And so I think for whatever reason, they're just, and it's hard because I think this in sports is, to repeat is really, really hard. And you're seeing evidence of that because everyone is out to get you every single night. And for whatever reason, over the last, 30 games after they started so well, they just haven't really answered the call. So I think it's just, they don't have quite that edge for whatever reason. And maybe it's new pieces just trying to kind of gel and they haven't quite found the rhythm. I also think some of it is a little bit, Stewart hasn't shot it well from the 3-point line. And I think that hurts them. And I know it's kind of been glossed over a little bit, but that to me is kind of one of the things I would point out for them, so kind of what do you think it is?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I just am generally shocked, honestly, because to me, you have the injuries, which are certainly a factor in all this, and you can't tell the story of the New York Liberty this season without talking about, just as you mentioned, I don't think they've been able to field a full healthy roster this entire year, and it's been different players of different calibers that have been hurt at different times, but pretty much at any given moment, one of your top players has been out, and that has certainly been a major cause for this. And as you mentioned, Stewie has not been her most Stewie self when she's been healthy over the course of this season. Then obviously has the injury again. It was coming out of an injury from the preseason into the season, gets injured again. So we haven't really been able to see Stewie in the way that we know Stewie to be. But the thing that just continues to, I guess, surprise me more than anything, because those can all relatively be explained. Like the 3-point shooting, like if you want to tie that to the injuries with Stewie, like I have no gripe with that. We don't, you never know, but like that makes sense, right? And to me, though, what doesn't make sense is the controllables with the New York Liberty, whether it be effort, whether it be like whether it's boxing out, whether like it's the things that can be controlled that have been disappointing to me. Because it's one thing is you've seen teams this year. I mean, look at Golden State. I mean, the team that just beat them. They're a team that has nowhere near the amount of talent, even with Sabrina out in this game, nowhere near the amount of talent on paper that the New York Liberty have. And yet Golden State does what Golden State does, and why they have been able to position themselves in the way that they are in the playoff standings is by playing hard. It's by the little things. It's by not letting the controllables slide by. They win the controllables more often than not. And that is something that the New York Liberty haven't been able to do over the course of this season. And that is what I think is so frustrating and confusing to me, is that that wasn't a feeling last year. And to me, this is a better roster on paper. You go and get Natasha Cloud, even before Evan Mieseman comes in, just getting Natasha Cloud made this a better roster than what it was last year. And so from that perspective, it gets confusing. And you mentioned the frustration that's being felt. And so what's interesting to me is that this team recognizes that this is happening. And they are acknowledging publicly that these things are happening. And yet when it comes time to change, every time they step on the court in, the past however many games, really, I mean, as you mentioned, really since it's been just kind of downhill, honestly, since that opening stretch where they looked like the New York Liberty we expected to see, they acknowledge it, but they don't change it. And those are the controllables. And that is what worries me about a deep playoff run. Because when I think about good championship caliber teams, generally speaking, the controllables are the standard. Like that's the foundation. And you don't have that right now. But I mean, even just looking at like the box score of last night's game, it's confusing to me. And it's just something I've talked about plenty over the last, really since Jonquel Jones arrived in New York, but only 4 shot attempts is inexcusable. And there's a various amount of, you could point fingers, you can assign blame, regardless, the point stands. That's unacceptable. I guess to throw it back your way, like when you're looking at last night's game or even just these stretch of games, like obviously they aren't playing the caliber of basketball that they had hoped to play. But even strategically, it doesn't feel like they're making it any easier on themselves by trying to play through different ways or trying to figure something out. It just kind of seems like they're trying to do the same thing over and over without changing anything. So I guess for you, where are you seeing, whether it be like whether in the offense and who's taking it, if it's the defense, like where do you feel like from a basketball strategic standpoint has been kind of the biggest downfall in recent games for New York?
Well, I think, like you touched on, Jones only having 4 shot attempts is a big concern because she is such a mismatch. I mean, she's a big body at the block. She can shoot the 3, but I also just don't think the ball movement is there. And you saw even in the game last night, several times, it was just a missed pass or a miscommunication or something just wasn't clicking there. And so I don't know necessarily that it's a strategic thing, it's just a better execution. And so the ball, I just think it doesn't move as much, so you're not getting the open looks, and some of that is a credit to Golden State's defense. I mean, there's a reason they're number 1 in the league in that category, because they fly around, they make everything challenging. But I think, like, if they played through Jones a little bit more, I mean, she's a good passer, more things can happen for them, and kind of create more of those mismatches than just hoping that someone's going to bail you out, because I don't think you watched them in the half court and you really felt like it was a smooth style of basketball.
Right.
And that was my kind of take. It was just kind of an ugly game on that end. But when Jones did get touches, I mean, she was 2 for 4. So it's not like she was 0 for 4 and just, totally didn't make any difference out there. I think too, she created a couple fouls when she had the chance on the block. And so I think for them to be successful going forward, is trying to play through her a little bit more, and then hopefully opening things up more on the perimeter, because, I think that's when they're the best, when the ball is moving, you have more open looks, you can get downhill a little bit easier. So that's what I would say would be the big, thing for me on the offensive end.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. And this is, again, it's a conversation that has certainly, I mean, I feel like this idea of playing outside in or instead of inside out and things of that nature has been something that has consistently been talked about at the New York Liberty since this kind of era started with when Stewie and Jonquel arrived. And it's been one of frustration, but it's been one that has been also accompanied by winning and in that time. And so like, you're like, okay, this feels like it could be better, but ultimately you're either making the finals, you're winning the final, like you are winning games, you're at the top of the league, like to a point you can't knock it. Like the talent is shining through. It has gotten to the point now where the talent is not shining through and being able to overcome what might be a whether it's a lack of execution or strategic change that needs to be made, like whatever it may be, that talent is not overcoming and overpowering whatever those negatives are at this point. And that is, again, it's almost hard to process because what we know this New York Liberty team can be. And even with that, I'm still here thinking like, well, they still could. Like in the playoffs, like this team that good. Like you're talking about a lot of players that have played a lot of winning basketball in their career. And in terms of when you get into the postseason, there's not many players I'd rather have leading the way than Stewie. Like in terms of a player that has played probably maybe the most winning basketball of any player like on the planet right now in terms of like highly competitive, deep runs, all that stuff over the course of her career. I don't know how many players are taking that title over Stewie. And so in terms of that, there's always that potential just to hit the switch. And I think they're capable of doing that. But goodness, if this is the team that shows up to the playoffs, there's not a whole lot of confidence. And again, it feels crazy thinking back to that 9-game win streak to enter the season. It felt like, frankly, a foregone conclusion of, okay, Minnesota, New York, we'll see you in the finals. We could not be further from that right now in terms of where New York currently stands. So I'm pretty shocked, honestly, to see us here. But I did want to talk about also Golden State, because this is a team now that currently sits in the 6th seed, a game and a half back from New York. I believe they own the tiebreaker over New York. I don't know if there's going to be enough time to jump up to that 5 seed, but the fact that we're even talking about Golden State in that vein is absolutely nuts. I'd say the thing that I'm looking at is I don't want to play Golden State in the first round. If I'm one of these top seeds, I don't want to see Golden State in the first round. Where are you at in terms of right now? They'd be playing Atlanta, and I think I think there's honestly like genuine parts of either team that they could really like excel on. But like in terms of just generally speaking, like the idea of Golden State being a team that can go and create a lot of noise in that first round and potentially cause an upset, like where are you at in terms of that idea?
Yeah, I've said it several times. They're a team that if they get in, you're going to be worried to play them because they force you to play the style of basketball that they want. And that grind you out. They play so hard on both ends of the floor. And I think what is a little taken away about the style that they play is not only do they guard the heck out of you on the defensive end, but on the offensive end, I mean, unless they have a great shot early, they grind out every offensive possession. So you are working on both ends of the court. And over the course of a 40-minute game, that's taxing. And so I think they're a team they could easily go steal one on the road. And then you have to go back to arguably the best home court in the W right now because they sell out, the crowd gets behind them. And I mean, you even heard in the post game last night, Kate Martin and Feg Bentley talking about just the support they get from their crowd, and they're always in the game, they're engaged. And so for me, that is a scary first round matchup for whoever they get if they do sneak into the playoffs, which right now, we were saying last week, they have the toughest schedule left, and they just keep answering the call because they're a team that from the very beginning of this season has shown night in and night out who they are, what they're going to be, and they've stuck to it. And so if I'm any of those top seeds, I'm trying to hopefully avoid, and there's not much you can do when it's all said and done. You can only control so much, but I certainly think they're a threat in that first round in a 3-game to steal one and then, certainly get one at home.
Yeah, who would have thought preseason, but between the Seattle Storm, the Indiana Fever, and the Golden State Valkyries, that the team you don't want to see is probably Golden State, which is just insane to think about, but such a testament to what this organization has been able to do and the culture they've been able to build very, very quickly. And I'll tell you, the one thing I'm very interested by for Golden State is the idea of Natalie Nakase in a playoff series and given the time to like just sit there and watch film. We just like, there was a couple of like maybe a week ago where they had a couple of days off and they're like, yeah, I just finally got to watch a film for the first time. And we were able to improve on so many different things just on the idea of watching film. And I'm like, well, you give her a team to prepare for, and we've already seen what's like the chaos she's been able to cause in the game plans and whatnot with this staff as a whole. You give her a playoff series to prepare for, and I wouldn't be surprised they're able to shut some faucets off, like just off the strength of a game plan coming from her and what she's been able to show, on top of mixing in what the culture of the team is and everything to do that as well. I'm intrigued, and they it's an odd almost strength to not have a superstar player on
Mhm.
this team because it can be anyone any night. We've certainly seen like whether it be Veronica Burton on a lot of nights, but last night it wasn't Veronica
No.
Burton. You know, like it was Temi Fagbenle for the most part last night leading the way. But that kind of equal like opportunity of attack almost for all these players offensively makes it's tough to game plan for them. And again in an odd roundabout way, not having the superstar talent and like the big name talent almost could end up being a strength for Golden State in the playoffs, just because if one player goes down, they've been used to this, whether it be through injuries and other players having to step up or whatever it may be. This is normal for them just to have like, okay, who is it going to be tonight? And they can kind of figure out as you go and respond to whatever the other team is trying to shut down or whatever. And it's a unique strength that I don't think any other team that's going to be in the playoffs is going to be able to have. It's in a way where it's like, again, no real star player, and they just keep winning,
Yeah.
and sometimes it just doesn't make sense, but they just continue to win. But again, right now they're in that 6th seed, a game and a half back from New York. I don't think that they're going to catch them, but I mean, just based on like how much time is left. But I mean, if you told me they did, I'm not gonna act like I'd be incredibly surprised at this point. And again, right now they'd be playing Atlanta, and I think that would be I'd be interested in seeing how that series could end up going. We're not going to touch on it too long, but I did want to mention, obviously, of course, the Fever and Mercury playing last night. To me, not a ton of like new information gained as terms of like what these teams are in that sense. In the standings, Phoenix goes up and has pretty much secured that 4th seed overall with the way that either team between them and New York have been able to kind of the trajectory that they've been on. They're now 2.5 games up. They'll be hosting and Indiana now in that 8th seed, just a game above LA. It's getting tight. LA has a pretty tough schedule. Like both teams have pretty decently tough schedules coming up, and I will say LA. We'll see them tonight against the team I just
Mhm.
mentioned, Atlanta. And this is a game that I think should honestly be super fun. I'm actually very excited to get eyes on this one. For you, we'll start on the LA side. Like again, they're still just hanging around in that playoff contention. They kind of just keep hanging around. They had that big comeback win against Seattle that has they just keep surviving. And here they
Mhm.
are with another game against a very good team, but still with their playoff hopes alive. What have you seen recently from LA? And what are you kind of hoping to see specifically in this game against Atlanta?
Well, I think their roster is certainly good enough to win these, games to sneak in.
Mhm.
It's been what I've said all year. It's just the defensive side of the ball. It's
Yeah.
can they get enough stops in games, especially down the stretch here to kind of put them over the hump.
Mhm.
And that remains to be seen. Certainly the other night against Seattle, they were able, to get back in that game, come back from 17 down and win that game. But over the course of the season, they just haven't proven enough that they can guard to remain relevant. And
Right.
that's really been the Achilles heel for them, being in the playoffs. But offensively, when they're good, they're so good. They have
Mhm.
so many weapons. Their length is incredible. And so to me, if they can string that together, find enough ways on the defensive end to create an advantage, they certainly have a chance. Now,
Yeah.
like you said, their schedule's tough to close out, but I think with what they have for firepower on the offensive side of the ball, it's certainly a possibility to me anyway that they could sneak in.
Yeah, no, I'm with you to close out this season. The last 5 games here, two. So we have tonight at Atlanta, again at Atlanta,
Mhm.
host Dallas, at Phoenix, host Vegas for the Sparks. So you're looking at teams that I mean, pretty much any team right now is fighting for something, right? And
Mhm.
like obviously Dallas is the lone one not in the playoff race out of those 4, but those are all top 3 or the teams fighting for the number 2 seed, and they're probably going to be fighting all the way to the end. And you compare that to the Indiana Fever schedule, which is Chicago on Friday at home, at Washington, and then you play Minnesota at home, and Minnesota has that 1st seed locked
Mhm.
up. So like you might see them resting in there. So at this point now, LA probably, I mean, certainly has the tougher of the draws between them and Indiana in terms of trying to go and just secure that final spot. But I do agree with you that LA has the talent to go and do it. I know for me, I've been so incredibly impressed this season as a whole, and again recently just by Rakia Jackson and the way that she has turned it up. And as she comes in and I completely agree with you on the assessment of the Sparks defense. That has certainly been the issue. There's no doubt about that. But Rakia is good for a big block, from time to time, and that's something that I've really been impressed with. The offense is like, if you watched her at Tennessee, like that translating is no surprise to me. And the fact that it's now kind of come along, it took a little bit of time to kind of get settled into the W just over the course of kind of going into her sophomore season and obviously a new coaching staff and everything as well. And even this season, it took a little bit of time just to kind of get settled in and rolling. But since she's been rolling, she's been fantastic. And that's not even getting into the play of Kelsey Plum, Dearica Hamby, Azrae Stevens, just over the course of this. And they're an interesting team because they have a different type of size than like Atlanta does. Like they have height, but it's not the same type of like power game that you think of when you think of the size of Atlanta. So it's kind of an interesting matchup here. And again, every game now means so much to this LA team and really to all teams in these playoff races because nobody's safe besides Minnesota right now. Like Minnesota is the only team that can kind of exhale a little bit. But even then, you still need to be playing your best basketball because all these teams are going to be playing all the way through the end of this season. I do want to flip it though to Atlanta because again, they now currently sit in the 3 seed. They are tied, but but Vegas has that the tiebreaker there. So they're in the 3 seed. They're right there. Phoenix is tied with them, but they have a tiebreaker over Phoenix. I majored in words, so all these numbers are starting to catch up to me now. It's a lot, but right now in the 3 seed, still certainly playing for that position, all within that. Who knows where we're going to end up by the end of this season? Do you feel like Atlanta is going to be able to kind of hold strong here in these 2 games against LA?
I think so. Obviously having Jordan Canada back in the lineup is a big plus for them. They're finally kind of at full strength, which I think they're a team that obviously has surprised a lot of people, but they've played really good basketball. And when they've been fully healthy, I think they are going to, hold serve at home. Like you said, every team at this point is fighting for something. And if you're Atlanta, Phoenix, Vegas, there's a big difference between being the 2, 3, or the 4, in my opinion, because you're avoiding the Lynx, who have been very, very good this season and fully healthy. And so I think, and obviously if you're, a 3 seed, you get that matchup with Vegas. You've had close games, so maybe not ideal for Atlanta, but I think, in my opinion, that's a better option than going and playing, on the road in Minnesota, where you're, the 4-1. So I like what Atlanta has been doing. I think at full strength, they're going to be good enough at home over the Sparks. But I think tonight's game, like you said, will be really interesting because I think however this game goes, it will surely dictate, I think, what we kind of see. I think if Atlanta comes out and beats LA, the response of LA on their next game will be really, really interesting because depending on how everything else develops, they can kind of see their playoff hopes, up or down from there. So I certainly think tonight will be a great matchup, but if I had to, choose, I think I would lean with Atlanta just because I do think at full strength, they're a better team than LA is right now.
Yeah, and they're going to be able to again have both these games against LA at home. Then their last 2 games of the season is Connecticut at home, and then at Connecticut. So not playing Connecticut's a tough team. That's never an easy win. The way that they're playing right now. So even though the record is what the record is, like that's not an easy game by any means. For either of those after this as well. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Jordan Canada coming back is massive, just in terms of the fluidity that they have and everything. Like it's. She's not maybe like the biggest name on this roster or anything like that. But if you wanted to make an argument that like maybe behind like Alicia Gray, that she's the most important to their success, I wouldn't knock that argument down immediately by any means. And because it's a pretty clear difference whenever she's on or off the court in terms of, again, just the fluidity of their offense and like how and trying to, I think she's a very important piece in how they can kind of change their state of attack, whether it be from going inside versus going outside. Like she has kind of felt like that switch for them at times over the course of the season. And I think again, that's the biggest strength of Atlanta to me, is the fact that they can get you really all over the court. But how do you make that happen? That's where Jordan Canada comes in. So having her back does feel massive here as we get down the stretch. But I'm excited. Again, Sun and Sky also play tonight. Look, there's not much playoff implications there. So I know my eyes are certainly going to be on that Sparks and Dreams game primarily. But I mean, every game matters so much as we get down the stretch here. So now is what better time than now than to be tapped into the Her Hoop Stats podcast, where it's coming at you every single weekday. And of course, follow on all social media platforms as well, Her Hoop Stats. For Tyler, for Brittany, this was the Her Hoop Stats podcast, and we'll see you again tomorrow.